welcome everybody. I'm so excited about this cake. I'm so excited about the opportunity of making this cake. I'm so excited about the opportunity of us all coming together in this lockdown, doing something all together. As you make this, the smells are going to be amazing. And as you cook it, your house is going to be full of the most Christmassy smell. Almost the best thing about the Christmas cake, I think, is the smell when you're cooking it. Anyway, we've got to get there, and it's my job to take you to that point. I'm hoping that everybody has already soaked their fruit. I've got my bowl, my fruit in here. I'm going to talk a bit about that in a moment. So I'm just going to give that a stir, put that to one side. The very first thing I'd like everyone to do, but this is only if you haven't got the spreadable butter. So if you have just got ordinary butter, not the spreadable one, I'd like you to put it in a bowl and cut it up so it is going to be easy to cream. If you've got the spreadable butter, the Lurpak spreadable butter, that will just mix really easily. Some of you might even have stalk margarine, which is specially designed for cooking, and if you've got that, that will cream easily too. So I've just put mine in a bowl, and then that's just going to go to one side. So I'm hoping that you have got that ready. The recipe did say soft butter, so spreadable or butter that was soft. Definitely not, otherwise you really are going to take a little bit more time from the fridge. Anyway, the very first thing that we are going to do after doing the butter is to do the tin. So before we start on making the cake, before we start mixing, we're going to prepare the tin. And this does take a little bit of detail and a little bit of attention. What we don't want to happen is during the long, slow cooking that a Christmas cake requires is to burn the cake. And what we're going to do now will not only prevent the cake from sticking to the tin, but it will also prevent it from burning in the oven. So I've asked you to get ready some non-stick greaseproof paper. If you've got greaseproof, that's fine, you can just grease it. So parchment non-stick paper, and we're going to cut out a ring for the base. We're going to cut out a rim to go around the inside. And then with brown paper, or some people even use newspaper, we're going to do a protective layer around the outside of the tin. So I'm just going to grab my tin, so you might like to get yours. I'm going to get the parchment paper, a pencil, some string I asked you to get, and some scissors. So you need a 20 centimetre tin. Some parchment paper and scissors. Now you should have a tin where the base comes out. And the very first thing we're going to do here is to get the parchment paper, put it out, put the parchment paper on top of the, put the tin on top of the parchment paper, draw around it with a pencil, and then with the scissors, which I seem to now have mislaid, there they are, cut that out. It actually needs to be quite neat here, because if it crinkles up, it will crinkle up in the cake, and you don't want that. So make a good job of it. Brilliant stuff, this parchment paper. I use it all the time now. It cuts back on loads of washing up for cooking lots of things on. Right, okay, so I have my circle first of all. The next bit is not tricky, but it is, you might not have come across this before. This is where you need the string. So if you get the string, I've already cut some of mine, and just pop it round the outside of the tin, and that will measure easily the circumference, because we're going to need a lining, and you don't want that to be overlapping too much. So if you get the circumference of your tin with using the string, so I've got that against your greaseproof paper so you know how much to cut out. And then when you've got that length, cut a piece of greaseproof paper. How are we doing? Are you keeping up?
Yeah, no questions yet.
No questions yet. Right, we don't want it too high, so I'm going to fold it. We want it about the length, the height of the tin, but it's going to fold over on the base, and that's how it stays in. So we need a slight bit to turn over. So I've got a strip like that. Cut that down. Hope everyone's excited. Hope you can smell your fruit having soaked all night in the brandy. When you cook it, the brandy will, the alcohol content will disappear, so don't worry about that. Now, what I've done is I've actually turned over at the base. I cut it and then I've turned over about a couple of centimetres, or possibly a centimetre and a half. And then I'm going to cut that like that so it goes into a circle. So up to my fold, all the way down. So I've now got a piece of paper about the height of the tin, the circumference of the tin, that has folded over with cuts in, so it's going to go into a circle easily. Now, put the base back in my tin. I did say about putting a little bit of oil in, which you can, which will just hold it in place. I'm not actually going to do that on mine. I think it will stay. So the first thing I'm going to do is now I'm going to put this piece of cut side lining in and put it up against the sides of the tin. And it should, because of the cuts that you've made on the bottom, easily fit like that. Then my base on the top of that. And then that should sit nicely and that should hold that in place. And then that will stop the cake from sticking to the tin and it should come out easily. Any questions about that bit? Because now it gets slightly more tricky in that we're going to cut a piece of brown paper, or as I said, newspaper. Just going to put this straight.
Right,
around the outside.
Question. Sorry, who was asking a question? No, I think we're all right.
Oh, that gave me a breather anyway. Right, your brown paper, same thing, but we want it actually, this does need to overlap slightly. So if you get your string and just make it a little bit longer, and then you're going to cut that piece of string off because we're going to use that string to tie around the cake tin. So I've actually already done mine, I'm afraid. So I've got my piece of paper, I've cut it out, and I've folded mine in half. So I've got double thickness that's going to go around the outside of my tin. So I'm just going to give you a moment to do that.
Anne-Marie's saying, could you redo the tin bit again, please?
The whole thing, Anne-Marie.
Yes.
I'm going to do it quite quickly. So you take the circle, the tin base out, put it onto your parchment paper, draw a pencil line around that to get the size of that, a circle. Then you cut out a circle the size of your base. You also want a lining, so I used my string.
How do you put it in the tin?
Oh, is that Anne-Marie?
Yes, it's
okay.
Anne-Marie. Yes.
How do I put it in the tin? So I don't need to go through the whole thing again. Right, I've got my piece of paper that's been cut, and that will sit on the base. where it's been cut. Can you see that it goes in? So then I just sit it in like that. I don't know if that can be seen. That just sits there. Then the circle sits on top of the bits that are cut at the bottom. Can you see that? I can't see what you can see, I'm afraid. Phil.
Right, everybody. Is that all right? I think we have the thumbs up there, Laurie.
Marvellous.
Pam says she cheats.
No cheating here. She what?
She writes ready-made.
Oh, you can actually get ready-made ones, yes. I know, yeah, you can buy ready-made ones. Not so much fun at Christmas though, with traditions. Right, so I've got my piece of brown paper, that's going around the outside. This is where I could do with 3 hands. I'm going to hold that in place. My brown, Phil, would you mind coming in?
Oh, big moment, Phil.
Hi, Mum.
You hold that there. So hold that in place. You can do it just yourself, it just is a bit tricky. Get your string, and then that's going to go round like you're tying a parcel. And then just do a knot. Phil, would you mind putting your finger on that? Just there. Thank you. And then, so we've got now the paper around the outside, lining inside, so it won't stick and it won't burn.
Excellent.
And talking of burning, now is the time to go and put the oven on. So the oven must be really low, much lower than you think it would be. And do not be tempted at any time to turn it up. So it should be on, if you haven't got a fan oven, it's electric, 140. But most people have fan electric ovens, so that's 120. And if it's gas oven, it's just gas mark 1. So really, really low temperature. And if you have it any higher than that, it will burn. The currants or the fruit will burn and the cake will burn. It's long, slow cooking that's the key here. So I'm just going to hopefully wait for Jane to give me a thumbs up to say that everyone's back having put their oven on.
Right, I'm just going to ask everybody, give me a thumbs up if you're ready for the next part. Let's see. Have we any more thumbs up, anybody? Oh no, we're still a little, still people looking quite busy with doing paper. So
Oh, okay, we won't rush you then. So those of you that have done your paper, now's the time to start singing Christmas carols or Christmas songs to yourself and to get in a really Christmassy mood, because this is Christmas starting.
Right, how are we doing? Oh yeah, we've got a few more thumbs up. Any more thumbs up?
Don't panic, anybody, and don't rush, because
Oh yeah, no, actually.
This is an enjoyable, fun session. It's not a horrible task.
Fran and Tor, they look like they're still doing a bit of their paper still. Oh, Evie, are you done, darling? Yes, that's it. Excellent. What about you, Emily? Are you done? Emily Harding? Are you done with your paper? Oh yes, we've got a thumbs up now, yes, excellent. Right.
Right. Now, on the recipe, the method recipe that you are going to be sent as soon as we finish here, it will, sorry, Jane is just calling, one moment.
What temperature is the oven meant to be?
Right, 140 if it's not fan oven and it's electric. 120 if it's a fan electric oven. And gas mark 1 or gas mark 1. I'm going to say it again, I'm going to keep saying it, long, slow cooking.
Lovely.
Okay, are we ready to go? So we've got the oven on, we've got the cake done, we've got the fruit still steeping in the brandy. which is going to be absolutely beautiful, fantastic flavours. Another flavour is going to come from the butter. Now, butter is going to prevent the cake from going stale. It's going to give it a lovely mouthfeel, and it's got a really lovely flavour. Now, you can buy the spreadable butter, which is going to make everything really easy, and you can just put all the main cake ingredients together. But I've had ordinary butter that was in the fridge earlier. I've cut it up. It is quite soft, but I'm actually going to use the traditional method here. So we're going to, first of all, cream the butter and the sugar. So I've got my butter already in here, my sugar. I hope everyone's managed to weigh out, because it's actually the weighing of the ingredients that is the most difficult thing about this. So hopefully you've managed to get that done. And I have a question.
Does it have to go straight into the oven afterwards, or can we have roast chicken for dinner and then put it in?
I'd hate you to spoil your roast chicken dinner, and I'd hate you to... It's best if it can go straight in, but to be honest, mine isn't going straight in because I'm going to take it away from here, because I'm not staying here for the next 5 hours by myself. So I'm taking mine away. So I would say it will be okay. It's best if it can go straight in. But have your roast chicken dinner and don't be tempted to cook the two things at the same time, is what I'll say. But bearing in mind, it's at least 4 hours cooking when you put it in, so you might be up late. Right, back to the ingredients. So I've got my lovely butter and brown sugar. So brown sugar is very moist, and it has a quite distinctive flavour. It's just not been as refined as white sugar is. So when you get sugar from sugar cane or sugar beet, doesn't come out, it doesn't look white. So sugar and butter together, and we're going to cream these. Now, you can use a wooden spoon for this, but I'm going to use an electric hand whisk, or you could use a Kenwood tabletop mixer as well. There's all sorts of things you can use, but we want to cream it and get it nice and soft and looking like a cream. So I am going to create a bit of noise here. So again, don't rush it, because otherwise you'll send it flying all over the kitchen. And it does take a little bit of time. Now, as I said, if you've got the spreadable stuff, you can put all this in together, so you might just want to wait a few moments. The only thing I would say, and the recipe doesn't make this clear, I've used Edith Smith's recipe, but don't ever overbeat flour once the flour's in, not in any cake. That's often the cause of cakes rising right up. Not this one's going to rise right up, but that's often the cause of cakes rising right up and then collapsing because you've overbeaten the flour. So we're going to beat for a while with the sugar and butter. So it's going into a nice cream. How are you getting on?
Everybody looks very busy.
Sorry?
Everybody looks very busy.
Good. Oh, it's very quiet now. If you can see, it should look like a nice soft cream. That's quite key. And what I'm going to do is, if you lift the whisk up slightly, the mixture should just fly off, but don't lift it up so high that it flies all over your kitchen. Marvellous. Now, because I can't see you, so I'm waiting for Jane to tell me when I'm ready to go for the next stage. So I hope everyone's enjoying themselves still. Starting to smell the lovely brown sugar. I don't want to rush anybody because, as I said, it's fun today.
Yeah, I think we're doing okay. Can we have some thumbs up, everybody, if you're ready for the next part? Yeah, go for it, Laurie.
Right, so the next bit is we're going to add the egg, and I'm going to add the flour at the same time, actually. If you add all the egg now and mix it in, the chances are it will curdle. If it curdles, the mixture is still really lovely, but you do tend to lose some of the air. We're not using self-raising flour here, so it's not going to be a really light cake. It's quite a dense cake, but you still are going to get air mixed in just from doing that creaming, from mixing it up, and any liquid in there turning to steam will make the cake quite light, but we haven't actually got a chemical raising agent. We're just using plain flour. So I've got eggs here. I've got 3 eggs because I didn't want to crack all of them at the same time. So I'm putting mine into a bowl. And I'm also going to add, at this stage, into my eggs, I'm going to add the black treacle. Now, black treacle is a funny substance. It's sweet and it's bitter at the same time, so it gives a very distinctive flavour to the Christmas cake. It's a byproduct of, when going back to sugar refining, it's a byproduct of sugar being refined, and it's very distinctive. It's often used in its typical British cooking, so you can use it, you know, in gingerbreads and obviously Christmas puddings, Christmas cake. It can be used on meats as well when they're baking. Ham, for instance, sometimes has black treacle on it. A tip, if you're getting it straight out of your tin, is if you run your spoon under water first, it won't stick to the spoon as much. Or warm the tin is another way of doing it, but I should have told you that first. So anyway, you just need a dessert spoon. And actually, I'll just mention that. So with spoons, you have teaspoons, dessert spoons and tablespoons, and they're actually measurements. So a teaspoon is 5 mils, a dessert spoon is 10 mils, and a tablespoon is 15 mils. So if that's ever handy, just to remember that. So I put a dessert spoon, so 10 mil of black treacle in there with my eggs. And I'm going to whisk those with a fork. So I've got 4 free-range eggs here. Recommend using free-range. So I'm going to add that in, but I'm actually going to add all my flour as well at the same time. And again, that smell is very distinctive Christmas cake smell. And then I'm going to add the flour. You can sieve it. You don't really have to sieve flour these days, because when you see recipes that have sieving, it's usually because they used to have lumps in. It doesn't tend to have lumps, but sieving also does add air into cake mixes. So I've got the butter, the sugar. Proportions, they're all exactly the same weight. Butter, sugar, flour and 4 eggs in here. And I'm actually, before I do that, I'm going to put the spices in. So we've got mixed spice, and mixed spice is a mixture of cinnamon. Just need to get a spoon, as I made the last one messy. Cinnamon, mace, which is the outside part of nutmeg, and nutmeg, but we're going to put a little bit more nutmeg in. So I'm going to put my ½ teaspoon, I think it is, of mixed spice. And then lovely nutmeg. Nutmeg is so useful, not just in sweet things, but savoury things, on sauces, on, say, top of a lasagna. It tastes absolutely amazing, just a little bit grated on there. So you might need a grater. I've got a special nutmeg grater here. So you've got your nutmeg, and as I said, the very outside part is what's used for mace, and then this will last for ages. This one nutmeg, if you can keep it in an airtight container, it will last, you can use it. You don't need much. So it said, the recipe says 1/4 teaspoon. And as soon as you start grating, and the freshly grated is what you need, you'll get that amazing smell of just wafting up. It's beautiful. If you ever make custard tarts, nutmeg on top of that, fantastic. Wow, it smells amazing. So I haven't used very much as a little bit more. So you just need 1/4 teaspoon on that. So I've got the flour, nutmeg, mixed spice, eggs, butter, flour, sugar, all in here. I'm actually going to use my electric whisk again to mix this now. As I said before, now I've got the butter and sugar done, I'm not going to spend ages whisking it because you just don't want to whisk flour too much. Most recipes will say fold in. You can whisk it, but just don't do it long. If I do something like a Victoria sandwich cake, for instance, once I put the flour in, I count and I never do it for longer than a minute, ever. And that is a key for a good cake. So just whisk it till it all comes together.
Laurie, somebody's asked a question about salt.
Oh yes, sorry, yes, I forgot. Just a little bit of salt to go in. I will just go and get mine. Never ever put salt directly from a container into any cooking. I've seen too many accidents like that. Yes, thank you, I forgot the salt. Actually, I'm just going to use my spatula. Oops, gone quiet. Now it's looking lovely, but if you can see, so here I have my mixture. So that's the basic cake mixture. And into that, we're going to put basically the rest of the ingredients. So we've got our fruit. Now the fruit is a mixture here of currants, raisins and sultanas. They're just different grapes. So sultanas tend to be white seedless grapes. And raisins can be a number of different grapes, and currants tend to be the really small grapes that have been dried. And then they have been perhaps treated slightly differently so that the sultanas are lighter than the raisins. So I'm going to put all that in. So that, as I said, that's had the brandy as well. So that's all gone in. And then I've got the cherries, glacé cherries. I cut those up earlier. An easy way to do with those is to just do it with scissors. And then I've got the almonds that have had skin on. They're just nicer flavour really. So they're going in as well. How are we doing?
Good. Yeah, it looks lovely. Look at that. How are you doing, everybody? Have you been keeping up? Yes.
I might just wait a moment.
Yeah. Yes, I can see lots of people. Yeah. They're looking quite busy.
And then also the mixed peel.
the next step, everybody? Yes.
Right,
Go ahead,
good.
Lily. Doing great.
Good. Is everybody smiling? That's what I want to know. Everybody happy?
Oh yeah, they are now.
Good. So okay, we're going to put the lemon zest and the orange zest in now, and again, that is amazing flavours. You get the lovely oils that go in, the citrus oils. So I've got my zester. I'm just going to do mine from here. So you really could do with unwaxed lemons, but I don't think mine's unwaxed either though. And when you're doing it, some of you might be grating it, easier with a zester. If you are grating, you only want the zest. You don't want to go down into the white pith. The white pith is very bitter, so you really only, don't be tempted to do that. So it's just the zest on the outside. So I'm going to put that in. And again, smelling absolutely fantastic. And then the orange as well. And that's just all these fantastic wintry, Christmassy flavours and smells. It's beautiful.
I can smell it from here, Lily.
Good. So, as I was saying before, it's not really difficult, except that we are now getting to a difficult stage, and it's only physically difficult because, as you can see, we have a bowl full of stuff, and we've got to mix that in now. We're going to fold it, and the folding motion, I've got a massive spoon here actually. You don't need to have such a big spoon if you haven't got one. But the folding motion is literally turning the mixture over. So I'm going to go down into the bowl, down to the bottom, and then go into the middle. I don't know if you can get that, Phil, and then turn it over. And I'm just going to keep doing that. I'm turning the bowl with one hand. I'm going right to the outside and then into the middle and turning it. So as I said, I'm just going round and round, turning my spoon. And by doing that, I'm not over mixing it, but I'm making sure that I've got a really good spread of ingredients throughout the mix. And it is quite hard work, this bit, so bear that in mind. So I'm going right to the outside, into the middle, and turning it over. Pushing that off. You can see all the zest. I don't want, too much fruit in one bit and no cake, or too much cake and no fruit. I want the whole lot being evenly spread throughout. Yeah, I've got all the nuts, the zest. This will take a few minutes to do. But what you'll notice is it all compacts down here. So where you had a massive bowl and you're thinking, how on earth am I going to get all that into the cake tin? You'll see how. So I've gone right to the edge, into the middle, turn the mixture over. Got no lumps of fruit. And that's called folding in. So here I've got all my fruit is now coated in cake mix. I've got all the nuts, the cherries, the zest, everything is spread throughout the mixture. So I don't know if you can see that. So the next bit is just putting it in the tin. You've got to be careful because obviously you've lined it, you've got the outside lining, so you do need two pieces of equipment. So a spatula, I've got massive ones here, spatula and a spoon, and you'll need both of those to do this bit. Do I need to wait just a moment?
Right, let's see. How are you getting on, everybody?
Again, it's no rush. We don't need to rush it, so I want everyone to enjoy it.
I think we're all right. Kaylee, how are you getting on? Yeah, oh great, lovely. Francis? Oh, Ali's Tesco delivery has just arrived apparently. Right, yeah, looks like all okay. Yeah, whenever you're ready, Laurie.
Right, so what we're going to do now, so everything's mixed together. Before we go any further, can you look at your recipe, everybody, and just tick off that you've put everything, even if it's just mentally tick off, that you've put everything in. I've got actually a cake that I made earlier to show in a minute, and I forgot to put the glacé cherries in that one. So just double check you've got everything in there before we put it in the oven. I will just, when I was at school doing this with children and I had everybody watching and I put everything into the cake tin, I then put the cake in the oven, and as I came up from putting it in the oven, I saw on the weighing scales was the flour. So I quickly grabbed everything out and tipped it back into a bowl, even though it'd been in the oven, and mixed the flour in. Yeah, to my horror, there was all the flour. Right, okay.
I think we're okay.
So I'm going to get a big spoonful and I'm putting it carefully. I'm going to drop it in there rather than try and spread it at the minute. Because I don't want to move my lining. That will be a real nuisance if I have to move the lining when there's already cake in there. So as I said, I'm going to get a big spoonful, use my spatula to push it off the spoon and drop it into the cake tin. Like that. And it will all go in. And I'm going to use my spatula to get everything out.
Great, everybody's doing great. Ethan, how's Mum and Dad doing? Come and give me a thumbs up. Are they doing all right? Yeah, we've got a thumbs up.
Right. Now the cake is quite stiff, so it won't just flow. And I would say normally with a sponge cake, you don't really have to spread it out. If you do, you're knocking air out. You can just knock it, and as it cooks, it will the fat will melt and it will just level out anyway. But with this one, because there's so much fruit in it, we are going to level it out. And anyway, we don't need this to be a really light, airy cake. As I said, it's quite a dense cake. So I'm going to use the spoon just to spread it a bit. And so if you just use your spoon, actually I'm just going to get a bit of water, because if I wet the spoon it will easily do that. Yes, I've just wet the spoon down. I'm just going to spread it, the cake mix. And so in this case, we will have, you do want it to be level, because if it's not level when it goes in, it won't be level when it comes out. And in fact, you can make a slight dent in the middle so that it doesn't peak, because you don't want it to peak. I mean, we can turn it over when we ice the cake and just you can decorate the bottom, which will be very flat. But ideally, you want this cake to be completely flat for decorating. And I can't wait till we get to the decorating stage. I can't wait to see how that's going to be done. That's not me, by the way. I'm not a cake decorator.
Well, this looks good. This looks very good. How are you getting on, Louise? You getting on all right? Louise Pallet, give us a thumbs up. Yeah, I think she's all right. These are looking good. Everybody's pouring out there.
Right, And so I hope everyone's checked to make sure you've got everything in there. So we've now got the cake ready to go into the oven. And it's going to go in, you can't, be exact with the time. So the recipe says about 4.5 hours. Now it could be ready in 4 hours, but you mustn't look at it before 4 hours is up. And when you're looking at it, you can listen if it's really bubbling in here, it's still liquidy, so it's not ready. But the best way is actually to touch it and it will spring back if it's cooked. If it leaves an indentation, obviously if you press it hard it will, but if you just touch it lightly and it springs back rather than leaving an indentation, it's ready. I mean, I know you can put a skewer in. If you put the skewer in and obviously it comes out and it's still liquidy, you know it's got to carry on cooking. But it could be 4 hours, it could be 4.5 hours. I know in my home on my oven, it's 4 hours and 15 minutes. I know it's done then. But with this cake, you can't be exact with the timing. But don't look at it before 4 hours. It won't be ready before 4 hours. It is dense, there's a lot of fruit in there, and it's very low temperature. Now, as you're cooking it, the sugar in there will caramelise, and so it will go a beautiful brown colour. It's obviously quite brown already, but it will go browner, and that's what you want with this cake. So I'm just going to put this to the side, because I'm just going to show you what you're going to do in between cooking it and ready for marzipaning it as well. Our oven's ready for it to go into, because it could go in now.
Yeah, let's see. Let's have a thumbs up. Anybody's going to put it in the oven now? People, yes. Yeah, I think a few people are. Yep, Riley looks like she's at home ready. Can they put it in the oven?
Yes, yep.
Yep.
It will take about an hour before you'll start smelling it, so don't worry if you can't smell it, but in 2 hours' time your houses are going to smell fantastic.
Do they have to cover the top of the cake?
Oh, I forgot that bit. Thank you, whoever that was. Yeah, you're meant to have. Don't put them in the oven yet.
Take them back out of the oven, everybody.
I can't believe I did that. Sorry. Right, if you forget, from your piece of paper you've got left over from your earlier, you just want a square, fold it in half again, cut the middle out, so you've got a hole in the middle like that, could be a bit bigger. That's going to let steam out, and that is going to sit. Sorry, it's because mine wasn't going into the oven and I forgot that bit. It is going in the oven, but not just yet. So you then just sit that over, not onto the cake, but over the top of where the lining is sticking up over the cake. And it won't touch the cake, but it will just help to prevent any burning or any discolouring. Any fruit that's on the top may well go brown, very brown, but that's fine. That's what Christmas cake is like.
Excellent. Apparently there's a bit of discussion about licking out the bowl.
That's up to you. That's up to you. You can take the risk. British eggs are free of salmonella. It's got, we don't tend to have a salmonella problem, but the risk is yours.
Right. Yeah, it looks like they're all putting their tops on. Yeah, great. Yeah. How are you getting on, Michelle? Yeah, they're all doing their folding. Whilst you're doing that, I just said about the marzipaning. We're going to, at the end of a session, I think it's week's time, we're going to show you how to marzipan, because it has to be dried out apparently before we do the icing. But we'll let you know about that. Right. Oh, what shelf?
Well, if it's a fan oven, it doesn't matter because the heat circulates anyway. But if it's not a fan oven, you want it in so the centre of the cake is centre of the oven, I would say.
Lovely. Yeah. People are putting them in the ovens. Okay, oh, this is a beautiful moment, isn't it?
And here is one I made earlier. So here is a cake I made before, the Christmas cake, and you can see it's much browner. But what we're going to do, what we need to do is every few weeks we're going to put a bit more brandy in, because that just makes it that bit more Christmassy. It makes it the typical flavour, and it just makes it that lovely celebration cake that it should be. The cake matures, so someone said to me, oh, how does it last for so long? But it does. It will last for months, to be honest, this cake. And as it doesn't go stale, in fact, it gets even more moist. Using the brown sugar, there's a high level of fat in there. It just stays lovely and moist, and all that fruit, it's absolutely fine. It won't go mouldy. It's fantastic cake to use. But we're going to put some more brandy in. So I've got a cocktail stick, and I'm going to make some holes in the cake. So this is for you to do next week, after a week, and then you can do it as many times as you like, really. But bearing in mind, though, the brandy now isn't going to be cooking. The brandy that you cook, the alcohol will go off.
Can you put beer in it?
You could put whatever you like in, Phil. No, beer won't do it. It's got to be a spirit. It could be rum.
Whiskey?
Or whiskey. Brandy's the traditional thing. Right. I'm just going to put a couple of spoons over the top. And where I've just made those holes, the brandy will go into the cake. So just not too much, we don't want to soak it, but just enough just to add that a bit more flavour into it. But it is going to be a beautiful cake. It's amazing. It will taste fantastic. It will last for ages. You can enjoy it over Christmas. You can enjoy the smell of it tonight. You can enjoy doing this bit next week. You can enjoy the decorating. It's going to bring a lot of enjoyment to you, I can promise.